Just before I introduce the next speaker, can I remind you all about the sponsors' sites and also the feedback forms to make yourselves £100 richer by this afternoon? That would be really much appreciated. And remember, you can take part in the chat, send questions, give us some feedback on that as well. Okay, so I'm now going to introduce Steve Layton, who's going to be joining me on the screen. Here he is.
Morning,
Steve,
Brian.
good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. From a very chilly London.
Yes, I think it's chilly everywhere in the UK this morning. At least we're not snowed in, so that's not too bad. And for once, the southeast caught a packet, didn't it?
Yeah, we had -7 overnight, apparently. Ooh, there we go.
Crikey.
Not that I was out in that, but there we are.
Just before we go on to your presentation, obviously we had a bit of a football theme this morning, but I discovered that you're a Chelsea fan of some 40 years standing. You've even got a dog called Ozzy. So perhaps you could explain why that is.
The Aussie thing is a long time ago. I've actually had a season ticket for 40 years at Chelsea, but I've been going to the ground for over 50 years. So back in the old days, you didn't need a season ticket to get in, of course. You could just stand on the terraces and take your chances. But yeah, Ozzy was my very first pet and was a dog named after Peter Osgood, who was a Chelsea legend and centre forward in the 60s and 70s. And he was named Ozzy for short, so there was no option but to call the dog Ozzy. And the funny story is the dog was actually a female, but we still called it Ozzy anyway, so there we are.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I'm old enough to remember that era myself, actually. So
course, yeah.
It was nice talking to you about that. Now, when you're not following Chelsea, you're the CEO of Veneas. I think I've said that correctly. But today you're going to be talking in your capacity of UKWISPA. Now, I would think many people on this call today are members, and I'm sure you'd say if they aren't, they should be. It's an incredibly important body, so I'm going to hand over to you to tell us more about UKWISPA and what it does.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks for that introduction. You're absolutely right. I am going to be talking a lot about UKWISPA today, but before I do that, and apologies, good morning to everybody on the call. Yes, I am here officially to talk about WISPA and give you a bit of background on what that organisation does, how it does it. I'm going to outline some of our key achievements, demonstrate our influence on both technological and regulatory platforms, and generally show you why you should be a member if you're not already, as you rightly said, Brian. Before I do that, however, and before I launch into the formal presentation, which is relatively short, I thought it might be useful to set the scene a little in respect of wireless generally, and the crucial role it has played, is currently playing, and will continue to play in the UK's, and dare I say it, the global connectivity landscape. From a UK perspective, we need look no further really than the noises coming out of our own government to understand the importance of wireless now. 2 or 3 years ago, the government here was focused completely on fibre. There were headline-grabbing announcements made that essentially suggested that full fibre UK was not just a possibility, but would actually be with us pretty quickly. And they were indeed very bold statements. Now, what you won't know is that before I went to the dark side and started my own business, I had a long and successful career in central government, culminating in the role of Head of Communication Sponsorship and Regulatory Policy at the old Department of Trade and Industry. Now, had I been in that seat when these various statements around full fibre UK were being made, I would have been in a state of complete and utter blind panic, wondering how on earth I was going to use the UK's commercial and regulatory frameworks to get us to that full fibre position. However, things have now changed quite significantly. While there is still a focus on fibre in some quarters, the language from government has changed subtly. Instead of promoting a full fibre UK, we're now talking about a gigabit enabled or a gigabit capable UK. A very slight change in wording representing a huge change in emphasis and approach. By focusing on gigabit connectivity as the endpoint without specifying a delivery mechanism, the government has effectively accepted that wireless technologies have a crucial role to play in getting the UK to nationwide gigabit capable coverage. This opens the door for 5G, fixed wireless access, and other wireless technologies to play their part in that development. As an act of further validation, Ofcom has recently become a member of UKWISPA, giving them the opportunity to engage directly with the UK's wireless service providers and wireless technology companies. My own business, Vineus, builds fixed wireless access and fibre networks in rural and difficult to reach environments. Each one of those builds is different, and each solution that we deploy is different. What remains consistent, however, is the fact that my customers don't care what the service is or where it comes from. They simply want affordable, accessible, reliable, fast connectivity. So as I said, things have changed. I'll now run through the presentation. I'm not going to read every word off every slide because that will bore me and no doubt bore the audience. But on this first slide here, as it clearly shows, UKWISPA is the officially recognised trade association for the UK's fixed wireless access industry. Our membership now stands at well over 100 companies who collectively go past well over 2 million homes and businesses in the UK. That's getting on for 10% of the total. We're a not-for-profit organisation with the activities and events that we organise sponsored by a combination of members and technology vendors. As a relatively new player in the market, Vineus has been active in FWA deployments for about 3.5 years now. I'm pleasantly surprised, however, now that I'm involved with WISPA, and we've been a member from day one, and as you mentioned, I'm now on the board. I'm really surprised by the community feel that exists within the fixed wireless access sector in the UK. UKWISPA promotes that community ethos and coordinates members' views sensibly and professionally to ensure that we do act as a single strong community with one voice. And of course, by doing that, that strengthens our ability to influence. And alongside that, as it says on this slide, we offer a range of services to members. So what have we achieved? What are UKWISPA's key achievements? There are a lot of words on this slide, and I'm not going to bore you all by simply reading them out. You can visit my stand and dig into the detail at your leisure, and by all means fire some questions at me if you want to know some of the detail. But I think the key message from this impressive list are that we have influence on both technological and regulatory platforms, and we have that influence because we act as a collective, pushing the consistent interests of all members when it's relevant for us as an organisation to do so. In terms of generating that community spirit and that collective approach as an organisation, as you would expect, we communicate regularly. We hold regular members' meetings, which give us a great platform for debate, for idea generation, for networking, for industry development sharing, and so on and so on. And these regular all-member meetings are supplemented by a series of focused at-home sessions where we create platforms to discuss specific technological or regulatory developments and issues. All of these events, as it says here, are incredibly well attended with a range of numbers from 50 to over 100 in attendance. And we've also created a really professional video library with some of our partners and members. This is an incredibly useful resource aimed at all levels of understanding of wireless networks and wireless technologies, but again, consistently designed and produced to promote wireless services and technologies and to reaffirm the role they play in the delivery of super fast and ultra fast connectivity across the UK. There is actually a sample video on my virtual stand, so please do drop in and have a look. It'll be a couple of minutes of your life well spent, I can guarantee that. So that really concludes my presentation. I'd like to hand back to Brian now for any questions, and I'd like to thank you all for listening to me.
Thanks very much, Steve. Yeah, I know from personal experience what a great job you guys do, and I've been very privileged to take part in some of those video case studies, which actually made me realise some of the challenges, particularly in the really remote kind of areas. In your introduction, and thank you for that, you talked about this changing focus from the government end, which also is very encouraging. We have had a question about, why is the future seen as fibre? Why is wireless important? Can you add anything from what you said originally?
Yeah, absolutely, I can. I mean, the UK is not a square slab of concrete that's easy to fibre up. It's a complex geographical location with challenging environments and challenging topography in a number of areas, and it's not all suitable for fiber. And when you can't get fiber to a location, I'm a great believer that wireless is a bit like water. It always finds a way through, and it will always find a way in. So it clearly has an important role to play to ensure that everyone in the UK gets the connectivity that they now need, a situation exacerbated, of course, by the current pandemic, where we're being forced to work, learn, play, educate, and do everything else from home.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy there with the water. What about the speed aspect, though? I mean, can wireless really compete with fiber speed-wise?
It absolutely can. And, Vineas builds fiber networks and we build fixed wireless access networks. And in fact, 90% of our customers are on fixed wireless access networks. And we're in the process now of trialing some gigabit wireless connectivity. So those gigabit speeds are now perfectly capable of being achieved through a non-fiber installation and deployment.
Okay, well, look, Steve, thank you. One thing I should also do on behalf of Cambium is thank you for your sponsorship today, because without sponsorship like this, events like this couldn't take place. So for now, thank you for that. And I'm sure you'll get lots of questions to your mini site for the event today.
It's been a pleasure, Brian. Thanks again.